Hello everyone, my name is Christian, and today we will extract data from multiple invoices using Power Query, and then we will put all the data into one single table. If you haven't watched my previous video where we extract the data from a single PDF invoice, please check it out. And now, let's proceed to the tutorial. In this video, we'll extract data from two invoices. One of them contains 2 pages of data, the other one contains only 1 page of data. Both of these files are contained into one single folder. To extract the data from these invoices, we'll have to go to our Excel file, click on Data, Get Data, From File, From Folder, select our folder and then click Open. By the way, if you want to exercise simultaneously with me, you can download the materials I'm using from the link in the description. Now we have to click on Combine and Transform Data. Here we can see that our Power Query has identified some objects within the first file, which is I2330. We can see here that 2 pages have been identified, but for the second one we have only 1 page, which is correct. The issue here is that getting data from folders doesn't allow us at first to select multiple pages. So right now we could load only one object at a time. In this video we'll clean up the pages from the invoices. So what we are going to do now is to load page number 1. We will delete this change type step and then we will load the data, because right now we need to add the second page to this query. To add the second page to this query, we'll have to get to the transform sample file. We can find it in the transform file from invoices handling, and then right click on transform sample file and click on edit. Here you can see that the navigation step has navigated through one object only, which is page 1, which we selected. So we'll need to delete this step, and here in the source tab we can see all the objects that have been identified. And what we'll do now is to filter the name column and display the 2 pages. And now we can expand the content of these 2 pages. Make sure that all the columns are checked out. And now we will load. So the transform sample file was updated now. So we will go to our main query, right click, edit. And now, as you can see, there are some columns with page. So there is page 1 from the first invoice, and then there is page 2 from the first invoice, and then is page 1 from the second invoice. So what we'll do now is to check the quality of the data that we have extracted. So first we will delete these 2 columns. And we will check for the data that we want to extract. And we will try to extract the invoice number, the date, and the item tables. So we can see that the date number is here in the column 3, and we can see that for the second invoice the date is also in this column, so that's good. Below we can see the invoice number, but also we can see that the invoice number is the name of the invoice itself. I would suggest that you always name your invoices by the invoice number. This will make cleaning the data easier. So we checked that we have the date and we have the invoice number, and now let's check the tables for the items. We have the position number, which seems alright. Then we have the part number, which also seems alright. Then we check the description of the items, and it seems alright. Then we check for the quantities, and we see that here is column with null values, and down below we have the right quantities. Here is also a null value, and you can see that actually the quantity has been maybe too close to the name of the item, so Power Query identified it as a single cell, so we'll have to deal with that later. We have quantity here, then we don't have any quantities here. The quantity is in another column, in column 6. Then for this portion, our quantity is on column 5. So we'll have to deal with that. Then we also have misplaced the price for the units. So for this portion is column 6, then it's column 7, and then it's column 5. And the total amount is also misaligned with the columns. So what we'll do now is to get all the quantities in the same column. And the way to do this is to actually move some of the quantities from their columns to column number 4. So we can see that the quantities for invoice I230 from page 1 is in column 5, and we will move it to column 4. To do that, we will have to add a custom column. So we will go to add column, custom column, and we will write the next code. If data from column 4 in square brackets is null, then get the data from column 5. You could also choose the columns from this list. So from column 5, else from column 4. And now we can see that the quantities have been moved to this column, and now the quantities for this portion are aligned with the quantities from this portion. Now we'll have to do this step once again to align also the quantities from this portion. So we'll do that again, custom column, and then we'll say if custom column, which is this one, equals to null, then get the values from column 6, from data column 6, else get the data from custom column. So now we can see that the quantities are all aligned in the same column, and that's great. So right now we will rename this column as quantity, and we will move it next to the description of the items. Now let's figure out what we can do with the price units. So I can see that they are quite misaligned, and in my opinion it will be just easier to deal with the total value. And once we deal with the total value, we also have the quantities. We could get the price unit easily. So what we'll do now is to check which columns don't contain any total values, and we'll delete them to make some space. So we'll remove these columns, and then we have the total in here, we have the total in here, and we have the total in here. So that's great. What we will do is to move the total values from column 7 to column 8 first, and then we will move the total values from column 6 to the new custom column that we have created. And I'm not sure, I don't think we need this column, so we'll delete it also. So now what we'll do is to add another column, and we will say if data column 8 equals to null, then get data from data column 7, else data column 8. There is an error. I forgot to add here a then. So we'll click OK. So now we have moved the total amount for this portion into the same column. And then we'll do this step once again to move this total amount to this column. So we will add a new custom column again, and we will say if custom column equals to null, then data column 6, else custom column, and click OK. And now we have the total values in the same column, and we could delete the other ones. So we cleaned up our data a little bit more, and we have the item data, we have the invoice number in here, and we need the date of the invoice. So to deal with that, we will duplicate this column, right click and click on duplicate column, and we have date only here and here and here. If we format this column as a date, all the other columns that don't contain date information will get an error, and we could use that in our favor to clean up the column. So what we'll do is to right click and then change type to date, and we can see that the date in here, here and here, it's correct, and that is good. So what we'll do now, we will replace the error with null values. We'll click right again, and we'll replace errors, and we will replace the errors with null. So now what we could do, because the item data is contained in here and the date is here and the cells below the date are all null, we could fill down these cells with date. So we right click and we fill down. So now we have date for all the items in the invoices. So now we'll have to clean the columns a little bit more. We will remove these rows that we don't need. The easiest way is to remove the null values from the cells from column 2. So we will filter the null values, and we can see that we have some invoice and part number text which is present in all the other pages of the invoices. So we could filter them also. So we are filtering them. And now it seems to me that we are closer in cleaning our data. I think we could rename this column as being the position number, this column as being the part number, this column as being the description, this is the quantity, and this is the total value in USD. I think we could also delete this column. So we'll right click and remove this one. This one we could rename as invoice number. But actually what we'll do first is to extract only the invoice number without the PDS suffix. So what we'll do is go to add column, extract, and text before delimiter. Make sure that this column is selected. And now we click, we write .pdf, and the text before the .pdf will be extracted from this column. So we got a new column, we've extracted data. We will reorder it here, we will delete this one, and we will rename this one as invoice number. So now we are even closer to our cleaning of data. We will rename this column as invoice date, and we will move it close to the invoice number. So the invoice number is good and it's formatted as a text, which is okay. The invoice date is formatted as date and it's also okay. The position number is all right, but it's formatted as a text, so we will format it as a whole number. Then the part number, it looks okay. We'll leave it like this. The description is text and it seems okay, except this. We can see that Power Query has merged the description of the item together with the quantity. So we'll have to remove this one from the item description. To do that, we will right click on the column and we will say replace values, and then we will find the road st1 value and replace it with road st. Now we click OK, and it seems that it has disappeared, which is good. And we know that on the quantity for the item here, it should be 1 instead of 24.26, because 24.26 was the price unit and it's also the value because the quantity is 1. So what we'll do now is to replace this value with number 1. Replace value 24.26, replace with 1. So now we could change type for this column to whole number. And now we can also change the type for the total value to decimal number. We see that we have some messed up data in here. The first mistake is that here we have the whole number, and the issue is actually the decimal separator, because in my Power Query settings my decimal separator is comma and not the dot. So what we'll do now is we'll go a step above the last one, and I will right click, I will replace values, I will insert a step before another one. It won't break anything. And then we'll find the dot and we'll replace it with comma. So we've done that. We go to the last step, and it seems that mostly everything is all right, but we have some errors in here. We go back again and we check, and we see that here we have a space, and Power Query doesn't know how to convert this text into a number, so we'll need to get rid of this space. To do that, we also right click on the column and we replace the space with nothing, and we can see the space has been removed. And then we go to our last step again, and now we can see that everything looks fine. Now it is left to get the unit price, and to get the unit price we'll have to divide the total value by the quantity. To do that, we will add a custom column. We will name it price, unit price in USD, and we will say total value divided by quantity, and click OK. So now we got the unit price, and we'll reorder it and move it here. And now our data looks clean, and I think we are done. So now we'll go to home and we will load the query. Now the data from these two invoices have been extracted, cleaned up and loaded. And if we get another invoice added to the folder that contains our invoices, and then we go to our Excel file and click refresh all, the new invoice has been automatically cleaned and added to our table. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If so, I recommend watching the other ones as well. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting tutorials. See you!